Ukraine is about to receive secret planes from America as the new aerial phase of this war begins soon. At the same time, Russians send its frigate carrying Zircon nuclear missiles closer to America. Why? And finally, Ukrainians discover the ultimate plans of Russians in the south, and because of this right now, they're 100% doomed to fail. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And as you can see from this video, a local inventor created this periscope from the water pipes. According to him, using the modern technologies such as mirrors, the Russian soldiers will be able to use this periscope to look behind the walls. And I mean, we already heard several times that the Russian army is asking its soldiers to buy their own equipment, but engineering it, I think it's the next step. And while Russians spend their time creating such inventions, Ukrainians are busy to actually win this war. Because as you can see from the statistics presented to us by the Air Force of Ukraine, in just 30 minutes they were able to destroy 3 Russian helicopters K-52. But then, we do have some concerning and very questionable and unexplainable news that came to us from Russia. Because previous day, the Russian frigate Admiral Glushakov carrying Zircon nuclear missiles was spotted floating towards America. At some point, it reached the Bermuda Islands and was as close as only 1500 kilometers or almost 1000 miles away from the land territory of the US, which puts this ship in the range for Zircon missiles, and according to the Russian side, they're extremely fast and extremely hard to detect. But you know what, I don't think Russia will be stupid enough to do something as ridiculous as provoking the United States of America with the nukes, especially since we are right now in the middle of this drama with weapons and military vehicles delivered to Ukraine. But I mean, who knows, right? But in case there is some kind of an escalation or there's any other major events happening, I will always be here to report on this news. And if you don't want to miss any of these updates as soon as they start happening, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and just see how I live outside of YouTube. But okay, since we briefly touched this drama with the tanks deliveries into Ukraine, let's now really quick talk about this in more details, because we do have some good news. And first of all, the heavily criticized Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, finally gave up, and now he announced that Germany will be transferring 1 company of Leopard tanks to Ukraine, which is approximately 14 units. At the same time, Germany also received a similar request from Poland to see if they can send their own Leopard tanks to Ukraine as well. And most likely, this request is expected to be approved. Next we have Netherlands, which is according to its Prime Minister Mark Rutte, they want to purchase 18 Leopard tanks from Germany and then also transfer them into Ukraine. But wait, there is more. Because according to the president of Finland, Sauli Niinistö, the country is also ready to supply its tanks and train the soldiers of Ukraine how to use them. And then another Nordic country, Norway, is also considering transferring 8 Leopard tanks to Ukraine. And finally, the US is also strongly considering sending approximately 30 to 50 of its Abrams tanks to Ukraine somewhere next week. But in addition to that, we also have some serious announcements about very crucial deliveries to Ukraine that will be also coming in the near future. And what I'm talking about here is that according to the representative of the Ukrainian Air Force, Yuri Ignat, Ukrainians already visited the United States of America, and as a result of this meeting, America agreed to transfer them secret SOFAR planes. For obvious reasons, the types of these planes have not been announced yet, but it looks like that this agreement is solid, which basically means that this war will be soon entering the new phase, the aerial fighting. Alright, and before I give you a pretty intriguing update from both the south and from the east, allow me to quickly share with you just 4 little news, and I promise I'll be very quick. The first one is that the Russian State Duma proposed a new law under which you can only get a driving license or register where you live only if you have a special military document. And that's right, in order to receive this military document, you have to go to the army. And so let me know in the comments if you think this is something suspicious. The second news is that the Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Vyacheslav Shapovalov, he resigned as a result of this food purchasing scandal. And for those of you who do not know what is this all about, here is basically what happened. So the army of Ukraine was purchasing the food for its soldiers at extremely high prices, 2 to 3 times more than the market price. And the main assumption was that someone in the government was taking this difference in the price and just pocketing this money. And so, in order for someone to take the responsibility, it was Vyacheslav Shapovalov who resigned, and this resignation was approved by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov. The third news, which is pretty relatively funny, is that according to the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, Ukraine allegedly offered Belarus to sign a non-aggression pact. And here is what Alexander Lukashenko had to say about this situation, and I'm going to literally translate you his statement. So, here it goes. I don't know why Ukrainians need this. On the one hand, they're asking us not to fight against Ukraine and to not let our forces cross the border. They even ask us for this non-aggression pact. And on the other hand, they're preparing this explosive mixture and giving weapons to Ukraine, such countries as Poland and Lithuania. Why are they doing this? We have no idea. That is why we have to respond hard. So, my question is, did you understand what he was talking about? So if you did, please let me know in the comments, because I absolutely didn't. In response to this claim, the President Zelensky, in one of his most recent statements, he said Ukraine is not planning to invade Belarus. But okay. And the fourth news for today is that finally my YouTube demonetization problem is slowly being resolved. And as a thank you for every single one of you watching and supporting my work, I decided to give you all 1 week of free access to my Patreon. This is the place where I upload hundreds of photos and videos that did not make into my daily episodes weekly, mainly due to censorship problems. And so, if you want to try my Patreon for yourself and see this footage for free, the link will be down below. Alright, and now as promised, let's quickly talk about the situation in the south and in the east. And first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians continue their offensive along Svatove-Kreminna road to regain their lost positions. And then according to Pentagon, Ukrainians are also doing their own counter-offensive next to Kreminna, which is more successful. Some more significant fighting has been reported in Opytne and Klishchinivka, which unfortunately has fallen to Russian hands recently. Which is, as you can see right here, is confirmed by this map, which shows us the change in territorial control over the last 24 hours. And in addition to that, Russians also captured more land to the north of Bakhmut, which basically implies that Russians will try to encircle Bakhmut from the south from Klishchinivka and from the north from Bidhorodne. But so far, the most important thing is that Bakhmut still stands. And even though it might feel like that Russians are getting relatively successful in the east with all these daily advancements that they make, just take a look at this map, which shows you how much land Russians took from Ukrainians since December 1st. And yes, I mean it, just take a look at this. I mean, we even have to zoom in to properly see how much land actually became Russian. And as we move more to the south, we can see that Russians also were able to capture a little bit more land in between Polokhy and Orikhiv. And ultimately, we have another report that Ukrainians were able to target and destroy a Russian sabotage boat next to Potemkin Island, located in Dnipro River. And so yes, as you can see, the majority of combat activities right now are happening in the east, with neither of the countries advancing significantly, but spending a lot of resources doing what they do. For this reason, we have several reports that the Western allies are urging Ukraine to switch their attentions from the east to the south and take advantage of all this brand new equipment and weapons that Ukrainians is about to receive. Because yes, the Bakhmut stalemate has been going on for more than half of the year, with both countries trading like hundreds of meters, maybe maximum every single day, but at the same time spending thousands of rounds of ammunition. And I'm not saying that Ukraine should give up Bakhmut or any other city at this point. No, this is Ukrainian land. What I'm only saying is that maybe Ukrainians should also start advancing somewhere else, while the attention of Russians is fully locked in this small settlement in the east. And to be honest, this thing got me thinking, what if Ukrainians on purpose stalemate Russians in Bakhmut, and at the same time they assemble the forces and machinery in the south for its next upcoming counteroffensive? Because at the same time, this region also looks like that this is exactly the place where Russians are also planning their next attack. Because according to the Ukrainian intelligence, Zaporozhye will be most likely the region where Russians will try to launch their attacks next, but because Ukrainians already discovered these plans, most likely they are doomed to fail. And so far, this is what has been happening in the last several months. First of all, Russians were slowly but surely relocating its forces in Kherson to 3 different locations, to Crimean Peninsula, deeper inside Kherson region, and to Zaporozhye region, to the cities such as Melitopol. The second thing is that Russians were also bringing reinforcements to Zaporozhye from Rostov-on-Don through Mariupol. And the third is that even more reinforcements of Russians as well as supplies were coming from Crimean Peninsula using Arabat speed, which as for now is out of range for Ukrainian HIMARS, which once again only reinforces the idea about the urgent necessity of Ukrainians to cross Dnipro river so they can take under the control the rest of the northern part of Crimea and cut these resupply lines. And so, what does this mean for Ukraine? Well, obviously, since Russians were relocating its forces to different locations inside Kherson and outside of Kherson region, this obviously means that there will be less Russian soldiers. Which basically means sooner or later Ukrainians will need to push extremely hard in order to cross Dnipro river and gain the foothold on the other side of the region. Because as soon as they'll be able to do it and bring their HIMARS closer to the border with Crimea, this is exactly when the entire northern part of the peninsula will be under fire control of Ukrainians, which is extremely crucial as mentioned previously. Which basically means that the resupplies of Russians from Crimea will no longer be possible, and those remaining soldiers in Zaporozhye will only be able to be supported by the forces from the east. But as more of Kherson region is being liberated, the more of Zaporozhye region will become in range for Ukrainian HIMARS as well. And it all means that one of the main logistical hubs of Russians at this point in the south, the city of Melitopol, will be seized from both sides by Ukrainians. And well, judging by the previous experiences with Kharkov and Kherson, Ukraine is much better at liberating its own territories rather than Russians defending them. Especially because the majority of Russian attention will still most likely be locked in the east. The next several months look very promising to be filled with good news for Ukrainians. And once again, if you don't want to miss any of this as soon as they start happening, just please subscribe to my channel, it only takes one click. And if you want to support my work financially, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link, or become my Patreon, where is 1 week of free access. All the other useful links can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.